So today, the Secretaries of Homeland Security and Health and Human Services are expected to brief House members on the worsening situation at the U.S.-Mexico border. It comes one day after the Biden administration allowed cameras inside one of the holding facilities in Donna, Texas. That facility is meant to house no more than 250 migrants during the pandemic, and right now, over 4,000 people are being held there. More than half of them are unaccompanied children. So with us now is former Republican Congressman Will Hurd, who represented Texas's 23rd Congressional District, to talk about this. Thank you so much for joining us, Congressman. It's been a while. This is the first time that we are getting to look inside the processing facilities run by the Border Patrol. Children are separated into plastic pods, standing shoulder to shoulder with barely enough room. They are sleeping on the floor. Have you ever seen a situation like this, and what factors do you believe are attracting migrants to the border in these large numbers?
I have seen a situation like this. This is what happened 2 years ago, and then this is what also happened, I believe it was in 2007 when you had another surge. This problem, we should have foresaw that it was coming. This is something that has been an issue for quite some time. There's a number of factors that are pushing people to come here illegally. At the root causes are in the Northern Triangle. That's El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. And it's lack of economic opportunity, it's extreme poverty and violence, which is causing people to leave their home country to come to the United States. Now, this is being facilitated by criminal human smugglers that are taking these people's money and is perpetuating this notion that you can be able to get in. They're not telling people that they're going to be housed with 4,000 people in a facility that should only handle 230. So those are some of the root causes that are pushing people. The fact that early on in this administration that they gave a mixed message about illegal immigration helped with that surge. So what should we do now? If kids are in our custody, we should be taking care of them. I know there are administration officials going to Mexico and also Guatemala later this week. What they should do is work with those countries in reopening what were called welcome centers. Back in 2017, when we had this problem, I toured El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, and what we found was the local governments were very good at taking people that were expatriated back to their country and getting them connected back with their family members. In one case, out of 90,000 people, only 3 folks, they couldn't find a relative. So we need to be working with those 3 countries, reopen those welcome centers. We also need to finally come up with a Marshall Plan for that region. We need an economic plan that lasts for at least 10 years to address those root causes, which are preventing people from coming here. It's going to be a fraction of the cost to solve the problem there before it gets part of our border. So this Marshall Plan for that region should be part of a broader national economic strategy for our country that can counter some of the things that the Chinese government is doing in their One Belt, One Road initiative. So there's a lot going on here. And also politicians need to stop using immigration as a bludgeon against one another in elections. We need to streamline legal immigration. Right. And there's bills that are there. And there's already a lot of thought that has gone into many of these proposals. Let's not recreate the wheel. The Bush Institute at SMU has some programs. The Wilson Center has a program. The Millennium Challenge Corporation has a program. There's bills like the USA Act that I helped create with Pete Aguilar from California that has some plans on how to address these issues. But we knew this was coming. This has happened many times before. It's unfortunate, and it's time to act.
So, Congressman, I guess the question for me is, have you spoken to the Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, or to members of the Biden administration? Because your plan does sound like it makes a lot of sense. And the reason I ask that is you made an important point there, that it's this subject, specifically immigration, is used by politicians for political scoring points. And it's fascinating to me to watch the Republican Party make this sort of the tentpole of their opposition to President Biden, because it strikes me that there isn't a lot of drama thus far in the Biden White House. I mean, today we're talking about, the Biden's dog, right? I mean, and it's very different from what we went through the last 4 years. And it feels like the one message that the GOP can rally around is immigration. And perhaps now everybody in the party is talking about spending. didn't seem to matter that much, a year ago, but now it seems to be that's an important issue as the president gets ready to roll out his infrastructure. The long-awaited infrastructure week is finally here, Congressman, if you didn't hear. It's finally arrived. But right. I asked that, Congressman, because you were one of those Republicans who was willing to work across the aisle and work with your colleagues. You were one of a few who was willing to sort of apply logic and common sense to what was happening in Washington, and you got hammered for it by people who are the supporters of President Trump. So how, I guess the question would be for me is, are you talking to the Biden administration? Because it does make a lot of sense what you're saying. I love this idea of a Marshall Plan for Central and Latin America.
Well, one thing I can say, they haven't called, but what I can say is for the last 6 years, I've been talking about the need for a special representative for the Northern Triangle. Think of this as a super diplomat who is responsible for coordinating all elements of the federal government in those areas. Guess what? 2 weeks ago, that happened. And so I hope that the Biden administration is listening to some of these ideas. I'm always, my philosophy was very simple: agree when I agree, disagree when I disagree. There's a lot that we can be doing in a cooperative way. We should be working more closely with our friends in Mexico. We also need to make sure that the intelligence organizations and entities are involved in this. Border Patrol is doing an incredible job of collecting information. This is not an easy process to get from Tegucigalpa to Eagle Pass, Texas, right? You have to work with a human smuggler. That means you got to have a phone number. They got to tell you where to show up and what bus to get on and how to get from point A to point B. That's a lot of information that can be put in the hands of intelligence organizations to work with our partners on the ground to dismantle these folks that are causing all these people to think that they're coming to the United States of America and they're going to be welcomed in. And so we need to be doubling down on that particular issue. And that's something I think we can all rally around. And the reason Republicans are talking about this and the reason Democrats are talking about this is it really is a crisis. You see those pictures. It's terrible. Nobody wants a child to be in a situation like that for any length of time, let alone multiple days. And so, but unfortunately, these are the same kinds of conversations we were having back in 2017.
Let me ask you, Representative, a lot of what you are talking about, these are things that take time, though, to implement. And if you saw the video yesterday, I don't know about you, but everything I see now is through the lens of COVID. And all I just kept on thinking was, if one person walks in there who has tested positive, it's going to spread like wildfire. What can be done now? What can be done today, the next 24 hours, to alleviate some of this?
Well, first and foremost, make sure every official that is dealing in these situations have had the vaccine. All right, that's number one. I don't know what the status of that is. Number two, this is not just the Border Patrol and folks that are dealing here. These are the local communities that are being impacted. These are local communities that have, for the last year, because the border has in essence been closed, the only people that can go back and forth across the border are American citizens. You've had, the taxes that are generated from people going back and forth the border has decreased about 50%. So these communities that provide support to this problem, they don't have the resources, right? And they've also been dealing. Some of these communities have been the most hard hit by COVID. So you're absolutely right. So make sure the people that are there have vaccines. Make sure we have absolutely robust testing so that we know if there's anybody that's in our custody, they can be quarantined and not infect the rest of the population. We also need to stop treating everybody as if they're an asylum seeker. Not everybody is an asylum seeker, and there are specific rules that govern this. And when we go through the immigration courts, when somebody has an asylum claim, only about 20% of those claims actually get adjudicated in favor of granting asylum. And so the people that actually need asylum are being taken advantage of because of the folks that are trying to abuse the system. And in a lot of cases, could be returning these folks back to their home country, because the folks in the home country are the ones that are best equipped to make sure they're back in the hands of their family members, and doubling down on taking advantage, these cartels of human smugglers that are really making this situation worse. And we're not doing enough. I passed a piece of legislation with Abigail Spanberger, former CIA officer in Congress from Virginia, making sure that the intelligence community was collecting intelligence, doing something about this problem. And it's not just human smuggling; these are the same people that are bringing illicit drugs into our country as well, which, as we all know, is a huge impact to many of our communities. And the number of folks that have OD'd on drugs coming from our southern border is pretty significant.
Former Congressman Will Hurd, before we let you go, Congressman, we got to ask, because that's what we do as reporters, any plans to run, let's say, for governor or for president? What's your political future looking like?
Well, look, if I have an opportunity to serve my country again, I'll always evaluate it. But right now, I'm enjoying working with, technology companies that have a national security perspective to make sure that we're prepared for this generation-defining struggle we're in with the Chinese Communist Party on leadership and advanced technologies. But if the opportunity comes, I'll, of course, evaluate it. But I'm enjoying living in San Antonio right now.
So you're running?
Like I said, I never cut anything off.
All right. Former Congressman Will Hurd, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thank you very much.
Good to see y'all.
Good to see you.